over to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Good morning and thank you, Dikshant. So first of all, let me say a warm welcome and good morning to all of you. This webinar is to observe and celebrate the significance of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which took place on June 15th, 2023. This day is a powerful reminder of our society's responsibility to protect and support older elders, older adults. It compels us to reflect upon the challenges they face, including the grave issue of elder abuse, and find ways to create a safer, more compassionate environment for our seniors. Aging is a natural and inevitable part of life. With each passing year, our older generation accumulates a wealth of experiences, wisdom, and stories that shape their lives. We must ensure that these individuals continue to thrive, preserving their dignity as they navigate the complexities of the aging process. The purpose of this webinar is to emphasize the importance of fostering well-being and empowerment in older adults. Well-being extends beyond physical health. It encompasses emotional, social, and mental aspects of a person's life. We must strive to create an environment that promotes the overall well-being of our seniors, enabling them to lead fulfilling and enriching lives. Empowerment is another crucial aspect that we must not overlook. Older adults deserve control over their lives. They should be able to make decisions that impact their health, lifestyle, and overall happiness. Empowering our senior gives them the confidence and freedom to live on their own terms with dignity and respect. By participating in this webinar, you've already taken the first step towards making a difference. Your presence demonstrates your commitment to creating awareness and learning more about the challenges faced by older adults. I encourage you to transform the knowledge and insights gained from today's discussions into actions, whether it involves advocating for policy changes, volunteering at senior centers, or simply being more attentive to the needs of older adults in your own lives. You can make a positive impact. Together, let us embark on this journey of awareness, empathy, and action, striving to build a society that cherishes and respects its older generation. May our collective efforts create a better and brighter future for our seniors. Having said that, we have 4 eminent speakers and who are stalwarts in their own areas. And as we progress through this webinar, probably there will be more clarity on the issues faced by our elders, right? So with that, I would like to introduce the 4 speakers. Probably the brief introduction would follow once I invite them to actually deliver their keynote speakers, their keynote speeches. But with us today, we have Dr. Abha Chaudhary, who's the chairperson, Anurag. This is Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Along with her, we have Dr. Barun. He's a retired professor from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. We are very honored to have Dr. Mala Kapoor Shankardas with us. She has been an associate professor with University of Delhi. And along with that, along with her, we have Dr. Behera, who's an assistant professor at IIHMR, Bhubaneswar. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Abha Chaudhary. But before that, let me just give a brief introduction and probably we'll understand the body of work being done by her. So Dr. Abha Chaudhary, she is the founder, chairperson of Anugraha, a prominent national NGO in India. She's an accomplished expert in gerontology and gender issues. She's currently heading India's first regional resource and training center on aging for North India under the aegis of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. With a PhD in sociology and training from the United Nations International Institute on Aging, she is globally recognized for her expertise. Over the course of 2 decades, she has dedicated herself to initiatives in old age care, poverty reduction, rural healthcare, and women's empowerment, making a significant impact on marginalized communities. Dr. Chaudhary's contribution have been acknowledged with prestigious awards, including the National Gold Karamveer Chakra Award in India and the Top 20 Global Women of Excellence 2019 Award. With her extensive educational background, and professional experience, she remains a driving force for positive change and improving the lives of vulnerable population. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you so much for being here. And over to you, ma'am.
Namaskar, Pankaj ji. Thank you so much for such a generous introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yes.
So, good morning, everybody, and such great experience to be invited by IIHMR. Thank you, Shani, and the entire team. It's truly a privilege to be on your panel for the first time. Pankaj ji, would just request, I understand that I have about 20 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so in case I'm exceeding, just buzz me around 19th minute. I would be on dot time.
Sure,
so I would just go straight away and I'll share the screen. 1 minute. Is it 1 minute? Is it visible, the screen?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for choosing this topic of aging with dignity and how it is important in fostering well-being of senior citizens. And the topic which has been assigned to me is basically the focus on the welfare schemes, policies implemented by the Government of India to support senior citizens. A very quick look at the numbers. I'm sure all the esteemed participants who are here today have a broad idea about the demography of aging in India. However, today, India is fast inching towards being the topmost country with the largest number of senior citizens. We have already achieved the tag of the most populous country. But even in the field of senior citizens, we are now 14 crore plus. A unique feature of this demography is that a large number of senior citizens live in the villages, and an overwhelming number among this population is that of older women. It has its pluses and minuses, which we will see during the course of the presentation. What is of concern is the high migration rate, out-migration rate from the rural areas to urban areas, which leaves a challenge for the elderly left behind. There are repercussions on their income security, emotional security, and most of all, their overall health and mental well-being. Another point of concern is a large number of women senior citizens, older women in this category of senior citizens. They outnumber men. Their life expectancy is longer. And what is of concern is that they are mostly dependent on their family members and society in their later years. Very few women, as most of you will relate, own a bank account or a property in their name. So the dependence on their children, on their daughter-in-laws, on their spouses is highly there. And during my research in the initial years of Anugrah, we covered around 4,000 senior citizens across India and more so in rural areas. One sentence which caught my attention was when I asked a lady, because I went with my theoretical themes of productive aging and I wanted to see whether they are aging productively or not. So I asked her that do you work? आप काम करती हैं? आप तो 70 साल की हैं, आप अभी भी काम करती हैं? So then she said that it is not an option for us. It is not a choice for us. In order to survive, we have to work. अगर हम चारा नहीं ले जाएंगे, पशु को खाना नहीं देंगे, खेत में काम नहीं करेंगे, तो शाम को हम खाना कैसे खाएंगे? So this is for them. There is only one retirement, and that is from this world. That is not from their life. So some of the broad challenges, I'm sure the other speakers, other eminent experts will also touch upon them. But broadly speaking, there is a lot of heterogeneity. When we talk of urban elderly and rural elderly, there is a lot of heterogeneity. However, some common challenges which emerge are social isolation and loneliness felt across the spectrum, emotional stress because of intergenerational gap, which is increasing. Digital divide is in some cases bridging the gap, but in some cases increasing the gap because youth is more now engaged with their laptops and iPads and phones, and there is lesser quality time spent with the elderly sitting at home right next to them, perhaps on the same sofa or on the same dining table. Financial crisis is looming, especially after the post-COVID era, where a lot of them have been confined to home. There is a sense of insecurity. There is a sense of dependency which has increased during post-COVID era, and the physical safety and security concerns, especially in metropolitan cities, have also been voiced. Especially if you see the latest reports which have come out highlighting the elder abuse. Now, today's presentation, I would basically focus on the Maintenance Act, Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act, which was enacted in 2007 by the Indian Parliament. Some of the key social welfare schemes which have been formulated by different ministries in India. The flagship scheme, integrated program for senior citizens, it is now called AVYAR, and which is by the nodal ministry, Samajik Nyaya Evam Adhikarita Mantralaya, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, which is a nodal ministry for old age care in India. And lastly, to lighten up the atmosphere, I would like to share some of the best practices which we have conducted in the last 23 years of our working. So I'm sure most of you are aware, though there is little publicity and little awareness regarding this act among the stakeholders, this was enacted unanimously by the Indian Parliament. Why? Because we have to accept the fact that families are disintegrating, nuclear families are coming in, children are under pressure, and there is a fast degradation of moral values. In a country where we used to pride ourselves with the shlokas of Matri Devo Bhava and Pitri Devo Bhava, today we are constrained to formulate a law which would give basic care and basic maintenance to the people who brought us in this world. It is basic maintenance and care. State governments have been given directives to set up an old age home. Medical care departments have been asked to reserve a geriatric care unit to start geriatric clinics. And those senior citizens who have willed their property and are not being treated well, are not being given maintenance by their children, can file an application with the district social welfare officer in the maintenance tribunal, which are available at the district level, and get their property back. Procedure it's been tried to make it simple. However, our experience says that however much they suffer, the rate of filing a complaint is still very low. And in the smaller towns and in rural areas, this still remains a far-flung option. It is not a usual option that elder people resort to. There have been calls for amendment since 2019. There has been a lot of deliberation with stakeholders, with civil society. And there was also a call that giving a 10,000 rupees per month maintenance in today's high cost index is not adequate. But at the same time, there were observations that a person who is not even earning 10,000 rupees, how can a person from rural area or a slum area or a low income area even give that much of maintenance? So there have been calls of justifying that amount. And I feel after having worked for Pan India for publicity and awareness on this act, the key to aging with dignity, the key to respecting the elderly is the internal change. It is your value system. The act can act as a deterrent, but it cannot act as a catalyst. So coming to the social welfare scheme, since the time is limited, I would leave some time for the questions if you have any. As I mentioned, our Ministry for Social Justice and Empowerment, that is a nodal ministry for welfare of senior citizens. It is entrusted with not only formulating key legislations, but also formulating key policies, whether it is a national policy or like the National Action Plan for Senior Citizens, which is in operation for last about 4 years. NPOP was formulated in 1999. After that, in 2011, it was revised, but it is still yet to, now we are in 2023. So there are a lot of changes which are required, and ground level implementation is also highly called for. Every year, ministry, along with various NGOs, stakeholders, old age homes, celebrates International Day for Older Persons on 1st of October. And as I mentioned, they are also the key ministry for ensuring the sound implementation of the Maintenance Act. Also, there is Senior Citizens Welfare Fund, which was launched by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It includes unclaimed amount from small savings account, which are lying in the banks, and that can be used, that amount which is lying in the banks in the savings bank account for those senior citizens who have passed away or are not claiming that account for several years, that should be used for launching overall welfare schemes for senior citizens. Rashtriya Vayoshri Yojana is again a flagship scheme in which assistive devices like walking sticks, hearing aids, spectacles, calipers, wheelchairs, etc., are distributed, and till date, huge level camps, distribution camps across most of the districts of India have been held. Vayoshreshth Samman is the award for longevity, which is an award for honoring those who are working for senior citizens, whether it is eminent organizations, prestigious individuals, or centenarians. Because of COVID, last 2 or 3 years, this award has not been given, but we hope and we wish that from this year onwards, it will be resumed. It is given in Vigyan Bhavan, and usually the President of India felicitates the people who are working for senior citizens. Most of you would be aware of the this scheme, Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, in which Government of India gives 200 and 500 rupees respectively, and the state governments are minimum supposed to contribute that much amount or more. There are governments like Delhi, Goa, Punjab, and Kerala who are contributing up to even 1,000 rupees. So it's basically the call of the state government how they care for indigent and below poverty line senior citizens. A very important program to ensure a healthy aging is that of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, National Program on Healthcare of Elderly, in which NIAs, National Institutes on Aging, are being set up. In regional medical centers, geriatric wards are being set up, and overall, all the special health officers or doctors are being trained to take care of fast increasing elderly population. In this, a very, very important key link is to train the staff at the village level or at the block level, which is that of CHC, Community Healthcare Center, or the Primary Healthcare Center. Anugrah's work over last 2 decades in the village area has seen that there is little or absolutely nil information on the morbidities faced by elderly in the old age, whether it is dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So that massive level pan-India health awareness campaign is required right from the village level. Almost 2 years ago, post-COVID, seeing the huge trauma and tribulations that elderly had to face during COVID time, a dedicated helpline number by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Pan India, has been started. And kindly, I would request all of you to note down this number, 14567. It's operational from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And various agencies across India have been enlisted state-wise to take care of the elderly, whether it is a need for an old age home or they need any kind of security, they have been evicted from the house, or they are being beaten up, their property has been taken. Every kind of information support and social support is provided by the teams responsible. Excuse me. Pradhan Mantri Vayovandhan Yojana is also designated to provide income security among elderly in their later years to avoid dependence among on their children. So interest rates are that of 8%, and this again scheme, it's a very flagship scheme of Government of India. However, this needs popularization, and as most of the elderly, the statistics say around 70% of the elderly are less literate and they belong to the unorganized sector. What is required from the large sections of stakeholders, NGOs, students, institutes, panchayats, is popularization of the schemes which are meant for senior citizens. This is again a very, very important scheme which was launched in 2007, in which senior citizens can mortgage their residential property against a loan, and they can have fluid income in the later years of their life. Under the ministry, the grant and aid schemes which are available to panchayats, municipal corporations, NGOs are, I haven't listed all the schemes. They are available on the ministry's website and also on the e-Anudan portal. However, the key important schemes are those which all of you know are funding of old age homes, 25 bedded and 50 bedded. And there's also a scheme for an exclusive old age home for older women. Seeing the large number, increasing numbers of dementia patients, maintenance of continuous care homes and transit homes for senior citizens are also funded. I would also like to inform you that in June, I think only 2 days are left. I think by 22nd of June, actually it's really short time, but in any, if any of you, your organizations are interested, please visit the ministry's website. The call for proposals for this year's grant and aid applications is still on. Kindly visit the portal and apply. There is also a list of the districts which are uncovered, which do not have old age homes. So the priority will be given to those districts. And there are very few Alzheimer care homes. So please come forward and apply. There are about 10 regional resource and training centers on aging. Anugrah, as Pankaj informed, was the first in 2010 to start. And in the slides to come, I will share with you the kind of work we do. In fact, we are already here. So you can see that the best practices that we started actually from 2000 onwards, but 2010 as a part of the ministry. This photo that you see again carries our vision and mission, aging with dignity. And this picture was taken in the Jammu Central Jail. And there is a police commissioner there, and also the Honorable Justice Vinod Kaul from Jammu Kashmir High Court, and the Principal District Judge Rashad Ali Khan Saab. We visited, this is very rare, but we visited the largest prison in Jammu Kashmir to see the condition of elderly inmates. Thankfully, there was sensitization, there was awareness, and there was a separate cell for senior citizens because their needs, their problems, their healthcare demands are very different from other inmates of the prison. So this would be my humble request to all the people who, and also IIHMR, kindly launch some kind of a study, some kind of a survey in prisons of India. It is highly required, and there are elderly languishing there for 20 years, 25 years. And when they finish their sentence, please remember they don't have a family to go to. There is no rehabilitation plan for those elderly who come out of jails. They have a blank and a bleak future they are staring at. So Anugrah has launched out some of the initiatives in Jammu Kashmir jails and also in Tihar jail. We are entrusted by the ministry to have a data bank, to conduct research, monitor and liaison with like-minded organizations. And our prime job is training, capacity building, advocacy, and awareness generation on all issues related to elderly care. These are the 5-6 states: Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, entire North India. Some of the work we are also conducting in Uttar Pradesh, but we are open to tie-ups. We are open to technical information across India. We work with medical colleges, academic institutions, every section of the society that is concerned with aging. We are all here. We all wish that we live for 100 years. So today we are sitting here, maybe after 40 years or 30 years, we are going to enter 60 plus bracket. So it is high time that we start preparing for old age. These are some of the glimpses. As you can see me, this is 2002 in Rajahmundry, Andhra Pradesh. We started working with senior citizens from the grassroots information and surveys and studies being launched right from Uttarakhand, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Assam. Our medical care units, our flagship program, Anugrah Drishtidan, which has crossed over 20,000 cataract operations till date. Our focus is geriatric care in rural areas. I don't know, some music has started on its own. It's okay, I'm just finishing. So
Right.
something has started. It's the music has started on its own. Fine. So these are the field outreach centers of RRTC Anugrah in Uttarakhand, Delhi, Haryana. And the Delhi one was inaugurated by the Honorable Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. So we have a daycare center, we have legal aid clinic, police help desk, and a training center. As you can see, we reach out in a big way to, can you hear me? No, the voice is gone.
Yes,
We can hear you.
You are audible, ma'am.
Okay.
You are audible.
So these are some of the training programs, awareness in which we have a large scale formulation of the IC material, hand holding of old age homes, training of the old age home staff and other organizations which come to us for any kind of technical support and backup. You can see we honor also senior citizens which are 90 years plus. Training of caregivers is also our key program, geriatric caregivers and bedside assistants. I would just wind up. These are last few slides. Very quickly, I'll draw your attention to some of the challenges that are being faced by senior citizens and the organizations. Insufficient training, very little infrastructure that cater exclusively to senior citizens, and also the social attitudes regarding elderly. 1 minute. I'll just...
Probably there was a background video which started. But
Yes.
Ma'am.
Yes. Now, has the music stopped?
yes, ma'am. And your final remarks, please. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I would just go through the final remarks that in order to improve the quality of aging and I think this I have to stop somehow. This is creating. I don't know how to stop this. Can you just stop this? 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, this is okay. Okay, fine. Yes. So, Pankajji and all the esteemed participants, I would say 23 years is really not a very long time to have worked in this field. The challenges are huge and opportunities are few. Elderly are not the top priority of the policymakers or NGOs or other corporate institutions. Let me be very clear about this. It is wherever we go, we hear the focus on children, education, infrastructure, reproductive health care. Elderly still remain pretty much low on the ladder. So all of us don't have a choice. We all have to get old. So I think it is time that we prepare. We have lifelong learning systems. And old age homes are not the only answer. We should have centers for volunteer activity. We should have daycare centers. And lastly, I request all of you to visit Anugrah Center. It is next to Karkaduma Court in Delhi. You see how we are transforming lives. 1,600 senior citizens we have here. And we are training them as paralegal volunteers, as support for Delhi police, and as digital creators. So there is always second innings, and the way to fight abuse is through only awareness and collective action. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And that was a lot of body of work. So I think Anugrah has done some really wonderful work. And I really appreciate the work. I think all of us do. And as you rightly said, there are a lot of support systems probably which are available now, but probably the value system is really deteriorating, and that is the case. So I'll request you to stay back, ma'am. We'll take the questions at the end.
Sure.
And so I'll request all the participants, probably will take all the questions from all our eminent speakers towards the end, right? And we have kept a separate slot for that. Now, I would like to invite our next eminent speaker, Dr. Barun Mukhopadhyay. He's a retired professor from the Biological Anthropology Unit at the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata. With a PhD and MSc in anthropology, he has dedicated his career to researching biocultural dimensions of aging and bioethics. Dr. Barun is one of the few anthropologists in the country who has focused extensively on gerontology and geriatric health. Through his career spanning several decades, he has actively collaborated with national and international institutes, including a recent collaboration with Temple University on studying the effects of extreme heat on elderly residents in urban slums and rural villages of West Bengal. He has published numerous research papers and books on topics such as psychosocial stress, cardiovascular risk, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, and the nutritional status of various communities. His contributions have been recognized and published in esteemed journals worldwide. Presently, Dr. Barun serves as Research Director at the Indian Anthropological Society. Over to you, sir, and welcome once again.
I think I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir. You're absolutely audible. Yes, sir.
So, good morning, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to the organizers of this webinar for giving me the opportunity to interact with you all. The title of the webinar, it seems Aging with Dignity, Fostering Well-Being and Empowerment in Older Persons. Avaji has set the ball rolling. And she has given us a sort of optimistic scenario of doing among the senior citizens in a way it should be done. Government is trying, as it appears from our deliberation. And of course, the NGOs are there to help them out. However, I am not a person who has done this kind of action research. On the contrary, we have been doing at ISI gerontological or anthropogerontological work among various communities in West Bengal. Well, certainly the topic is challenging and the issue is to be taken care of by research, action, and should be a continuous process of observation and action at the different levels. In humans, as we can well understand, aging is a biocultural process, a biosocial process, universal in nature and inevitable in occurrence. However, it is complex. Manifestation of aging is too varied between individuals, groups, and societies, and we know that. Senescence is other word that is important and used much in the field of biology. It is to be noted that human senescence is a biocultural phenomenon too. Globally, as well as in our country, aging research and action are gaining importance since the number of older persons are increasing in steady number, and there are, of course, different predictions in which rate it will grow. Of course, we all know about population aging. Researchers of different disciplines are interested in aging studies. It appears, and I'm sorry, anthropology is also included. It's also my observation that gerontology and geriatrics in our country are also becoming important fields, but I think the speed of growth is not that encouraging. I may be wrong, but I think I want to be educated in this regard. Now, having said so, I would like to tell you about our own stories of research in a nutshell in order to disseminate the information of what we have really done over the last 15 years. So since 2008, my wife Sushmita Mukhopadhyay and I at the Indian Statistical Institute remained engaged in various projects on older populations, conventionally accepted at 60 years and above, by supervising 6 doctoral research studies that addressed several dimensions of elderly health in both urban and rural settings in West Bengal. These were small-scale cross-sectional studies adopting bicultural approach with specific hypotheses in mind and mostly based on quantitative data. And again, in 2019, Professor Charles Weitz of Temple University, USA, Dr. Ketik Das of WBVHA, West Bengal, and I collaborated to study the effect of heat stress on elderly life, considering older persons inhabiting urban slums and rural villages in West Bengal. Specifically in rural villages, our collaborator, Dr. Das, helped us. I'm tempted now to add that empirical data that were generated through these studies were mostly benchmark in nature because there were dearth of information on elderly health dimensions, and much more studies would have been done, I understand, by the anthropologists themselves. But as a matter of fact, what happens is they also are very much interested in growth studies, growth and development studies, which is, of course, the first biological process that the humans have to deal with. And aging is another biological process, so complex in nature, and anthropologists are definitely interested. Now, as a matter of fact, we began with a study on urban middle class elderly and examined their health issues in relation to their urban lifestyle, as well as seasonal variation, diet, physical activity, and psychosocial stress variably affected their health, both physical and mental, in both sexes, and some health aspects were affected by seasonal variation as well. There was an indication of successful aging among our study participants too, when we compare this data set with other data sets available in different other mega cities of India. Upasama Sinha did this work. Our next effort was to evaluate and compare mental health status of urban and rural elderly measured in terms of a variety of mental health threats, as you know, depression, anxiety, loneliness, cognitive impairment. These are certain traits which are to be measured in order to measure mental health. And of course, we found that rural elderly did experience relatively worse mental health status compared to their urban counterparts. And of course, the determinants of such differences have also been identified. Momita Maiti did this work. The third study examined health vulnerability of elderly women residing in the urban slums. The results clearly demonstrated that they face problems pertaining to health management and care in a poor resource setting. Anushka Ghosh did this work. The fourth one addressed the issue of health and well-being of family caregivers of Alzheimer's patients in an urban area. The study revealed that health, especially mental health, of the caregivers become affected due to the demanding job of caregiving of Alzheimer's disease patients their own, kin's plight, as a matter of fact. Ipsita Basu did this work. So you can see that we have done our research in various different settings with different kinds of dimensions of health. The next one dealt with the estimation of prevalence and examining the determinants of frailty syndrome in a group of community dwelling rural elderly. The study reasonably identified factors relevant for frailty prevention and management. This is something which is of utmost interest and importance in the matters of aging studies, and we have a long way to go. Sani Das of your institute did this work, and she's continuing to do such work. Now I'm informed. And the sixth one addressed the issue of health status, health-related quality of life, and healthcare practices of rural elderly. This study revealed the comparative community profiles of health and healthcare among the two major religious groups, Hindus and Muslims, and identified factors that determine the status of their health, be it poor or not, as well as factors that impinge on their healthcare problems. Samarpita Devnath did this work. And now I mention about our collaborative project that examines effect of heat stress on elderly life. This study gave us the opportunity to evaluate the effects of physical environmental conditions of heat and humidity of West Bengal summer on elderly health and healthcare issues and associated coping strategies of heat stress. This is possibly a pioneering one in West Bengal, and it assumes a special significance in the era of climate change and global warming. This study revealed that problems of heat stress vary by ecological settings of urban slum dwelling and living in the villages. Health issues differ, and coping strategies remain also different because of housing types and its materials, occupational patterns, and cultural norms and values. Significant gender differences are discernible as well, especially in rural society, because of the cultural practices, as a matter of fact. Now, these examples are basically can tell you what have been done by us over the last 15, 20 years, and our publications will tell you how we have been able to make a dent in this particular field. But of course, there are many things to be done, and we have to say that all these studies were conducted with a common thread of biocultural approach, of understanding of elderly health, which essentially is determined by interactions of a variety of sociocultural, behavioral, and biological factors in a particular physical environment. And there lies its importance. We are, in a matter of fact, are interested to understand the logic of differences and similarities in order to be able to understand the adaptive value of the group's potentials. Now, the thing is, after all, at one level, the state of health and well-being can be considered as an indicator of adaptation in a particular environment, and therefore its variation matters in measuring of its adaptive ability or adaptability. And that's our theoretical premise. These studies, in some way or other, try to gauge well-being issues and directly or indirectly hinted at the possibility of presence and absence of empowerment among the elderly, the theme of this particular webinar. So, in order to understand the possibilities of dignity and well-being, you can also have this kind of studies that will tell you the directions of further research. Finally, let me touch upon the issue of elder abuse. You know, the week or the decade that is being organized for issue of elder abuse. Frankly, I have never been into the research on elder abuse, but our studies provide clues to the elder abuse issues at family and societal levels by our study results on elderly health. Further, specific research attention is warranted in this regard. I think our next speaker will be much more competent to give us a kind of a scenario of elder abuse in India, because she is intimate, I believe. The issue of elder abuse is a highly complex and complicated one to deal with, and measuring nature and extent of abuse at various levels, for example, self, family, community, and the like, is a challenging job. And I'm of the opinion anthropological methods of data collection will be of much help in this particular regard. WHO has already proposed strategies for preventing elderly abuse, and they have published one pamphlet, Tackling Abuse of Older People, 5 Priorities for the United Nations Decades of Healthy Aging, 2130. And I think our country also will do her best in this regard. Of course, there are many soldiers in our country like Avaji who can, put the ball forward. I'm sure also that the Center of Aging that IIHMR has created will reasonably pay attention to this problem by adopting a multidisciplinary approach. I wish them good luck for its sustenance and growth. Finally, I congratulate the director, IIHMR, and all her colleagues in the Institute for organizing this webinar. And thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to participate. Thank you so much. I stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think that was a passionate anthropologist speaking, so a lot of passion there. And, the attempt has been that only. So I think at one end, we have this fine research. On other end, it is the policies. So I think the interlinking has to be there. And when you were actually speaking about growth and development, somehow Bhagavad Gita popped up in my head. At one end, you have growth and development, which we speak on. On the other end, it is the elderly care. But thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for those kind words. And now, as sir also mentioned, we have a very eminent speaker, Dr. Mala Kapoor Shankardas. And thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. Dr. Mala Kapoor Shankardas is by training a sociologist, gerontologist, and health social scientist. She's an international tutor with INIA, which is International Institute of Aging, United Nations, Malta. She, after 38 years of teaching, retired as senior faculty from University of Delhi. This was in the end of March 2021. She is governing body member, Alzheimer's and Related Disorders Society of India, Delhi chapter, Asia representative, International Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse, founder member, Development, Welfare and Research Foundation, executive member, ACAP, which is Aging Consortium Asia Pacific, Dr. Mala Kapoor Shankardas is known as an international consultant, an academician, researcher, writer, and an activist. Her work relates to the field of sociology, gerontology, health, gender, environment, and development studies. She has done and continues to do prestigious assignments from various agencies of United Nations in India and abroad. She's a member of different committees constituted by varied ministries and institutions of Government of India. She's affiliated to international and national organizations, holding honorary positions, being a resource person and delivering lectures, addresses, keynote addresses, chairing technical sessions. She has published 11 books on aging, chapters with reputable publishers, and has many articles in specialized journals, magazines, and newspapers. She is the recipient of fellowships and awards for her work on aging issues and for her professional commitments. Her special attention is on the rights of older people, social, health, gender, and environmental concerns affecting the quality of life of older persons by focusing on care aspects, empowerment, and development strategies. And by no means this is exhaustive. You know, I could actually go on and on and on, but we are very privileged, ma'am. Over to Mala, ma'am, please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. I really appreciate your kind words, and I'm glad you could highlight some of my things, because all this relates to what I would be saying, and it relates to the fact that aging needs prominence, and we want more people to work and encourage some youngsters to take up this field. So good morning or good afternoon now almost, and greetings to the organizers and participants, with special thanks to the director and the team for making me part of this webinar. At the outset, let me begin by saying I'm happy to be invited for a webinar on a topic which is very close to my heart and which pertains to a lot of my research, writings, and activism as a sociologist, gerontologist, and health social scientist. I'm also pleased to share my thoughts here today on life course approach towards well-being and empowerment, as this for me and for many involved with aging issues is a pertinent issue impacting aging societies. In contemporary times, there is growing emphasis being paid to age with dignity as much as it is on healthy aging concept. In fact, these intersect at many levels. Both these aspects pertain to understanding the life course perspective and relating it to the fact that aging requires, starting from an early age, the process of developing and maintaining functional ability that enables well-being in later years. So what I bring to your attention is the emphasis on life course perspective, which has become integral to scientific research on aging from both medical and social viewpoint. In other words, bringing a holistic understanding to aging with dignity. The life course is conceptualized as a sequence of age-linked transitions that are embedded in social institutions which shape an individual's life. Thus, what happens at a particular chronological age is shaped by quality of relationships, life transitions, and social, demographic, and epidemiological changes that influence a person's life over the years. And in short, these are parameters that contribute towards an aging person's well-being and empowerment or lack of it. The significance of life course perspective enables us to understand that the health and well-being of aging individuals is dependent on the dynamic relationship of previous exposures throughout life with the subsequent results or outcomes. Thus, it is important to improve the mechanisms by which positive influences can shape healthy aging and negative aspects can be minimized. In other words, it's pertinent that programs and policies are established in society which are conducive to individuals in making appropriate choices for their well-being, be given opportunities for social, psychological, and economic empowered life that secures their later years from a holistic paradigm. What then becomes a necessary social, economic, and development prerequisite for aging populations is that health, social security, and protection is provided throughout their lifespan that impacts in making aging persons' quality of life better by including also end-of-life care as well as assistive technologies whenever the needs require it. In other words, this is the crux of healthy active aging concept. It is an ongoing process which looks at ways to optimize later years. Clearly then, what I'm bringing attention is the need to have a comprehensive approach to active aging that can sustain and enhance physical and mental health and prevent multi-morbidity in later life. This requires policy strategies that influence well-being throughout the life course. Taking this further, I recommend having an understanding that aging is not just a biological process, but rather it is socially constructed, and that we must recognize heterogeneity among older people. Our programs in society should cater towards absorbing the dynamics of aging and advocate for planning to meet needs of older people in varied circumstances, be it in rural, urban, remote areas, be it for various genders, and also be it under specialized economic and social groups. This approach allows planners to take into account factors that lead to unhealthy practices and negatively towards life expectancy, and also towards what has become very significant now, the healthy life expectancy, and how do we compact these circumstances. It also calls for programs that aim to minimize structural risk factors which can make aging a dreaded experience for all genders in society by factoring in age factors. And here I would just say that looking at literacy, employment opportunities become very necessary for protection and social security and health factors. It is therefore crucial to make aging a positive stage of life by improving biological and environmental conditions of earlier years. Thereby, it is pivotal that our actions have to be geared towards limiting risk factors in early and midlife and adopt such measures that are likely to improve physical and mental health in older age, with keeping various gender dimensions in preview. What therefore needs to be in practice and developed as a strategy is a multi-dimensional and multi-level concept of aging that focuses on compression of morbidity and mortality, the delay of infirmity and senility, and in theory recognizes wide diversity in the aging process as individuals move through their life cycles. This represents then a new paradigm in gerontology, which is getting popular in this century. It aims to maximize older adults' physical, social, and mental well-being in order to promote independence and reduce the burden on others. And it underlines the principles of the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, with which I have been now involved for 20 years, or even before it was launched, and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, whose agenda is almost going to finish by 2030, and which are also being incorporated in the decade of healthy aging. And I'm happy that we are bringing all this as I'm part of the WHO team to bring focus on it. Clearly behind this conceptual analysis of life course approach, dominating and becoming part of agenda of governments, of policymakers, gerontologists is a wide acceptance globally of bringing emphasis on the need for action across multiple sectors to enable older people to remain a resource to their families, communities, and economies. In 21st century, in the coming years, when the universe will be more aged, the aim is to eclipse previous thinking, which focused on disengagement by now, and in the coming decades, concentrating on activity and function, on agility, autonomy by developing tools and programs to maintain it. And here, digital technology and assistive technologies are very useful. This approach highlights the dimensions of active, successful aging paradigm, meaningful across countries, including India, which is rapidly reflecting the features of being an aging and aged society than just being a young society. So this emerging paradigm includes three main components: low probability of disease and disease-related disability, and I'm glad the health policy is making emphasis on this. High cognitive and physical functional capacity, and the mental health program is bringing also emphasis on this, and active engagement with life. This model has contributed to the rejection of the perception that older age is linked to an unavoidable series of losses and deteriorations which cannot be managed. And it's so nice to see so many young old and even old who are very active now, who are contributing to their families and communities, who are volunteering for so much activities. And this needs to be recognized as a resource. So in doing so, it serves as a preventive and optimistic approach to later life. It invokes a new narrative of positive aging, emphasizing self-directed health across the life course. And again, this is a new development where people are becoming conscious of their health and taking it in their own hands with some support from services and facilities organized by the government and the NGO sector. It indicates that experiences in later life could be considered in terms of success rather than in conventional expectations for failure. However, we need to focus on how to achieve all this rather than what it entails. Thus, the strategy demands an open overview of what can provide a comprehensive understanding of aging well. What would be required in aging societies to optimize and empower individuals to achieve success? And here, caregivers' role also becomes important. Awareness generation among them is also very crucial, how they treat the older people and how older people regard themselves. I agree with certain gerontologists like Clendem and others who call for a well-constructed approach, which includes measurements of physiological health, well-being, and social engagement with subjective and objective aspects. Here, subjective element provides greater attention to individuals' perceptions of their own aging and the effects of earlier life experience by also including aspects of disability. It leads me to bring attention to WHO conceptualization related to the process of optimizing opportunities for health, participation, and security in order to enhance quality of life as people age. In other words, it takes ahead the notion of continuing participation in social, economic, cultural, spiritual, and civic affairs and not just the ability to be physically active or to participate in the labor force. Thus, we see in our villages, in our cities, in many areas where older people are active, there are better quality of life issues, and they enjoy much more participation and connectivity with their families and societies. So there is a strong emphasis on autonomy and participation by refuting the decline and loss paradigm. The dependency elements often linked to the effects of physical frailty associated with old age. The notion of well-being and empowerment thus derives from opportunities for active roles that older people play in society and includes a more holistic understanding of aging by stressing on social participation and mental and physical well-being, the roots of which are derived from earlier life course events. And this we are also adopting as one of the preventive measures when we try to tackle elder abuse issues. The dependency element leads to exploitation, leads to vulnerabilities of older people to abuse. The more active they are, the more autonomous they are, the more in control of their circumstances they are, is a big means to curb elder abuse. So I would therefore stress on holistic understanding of aging by stressing on social participation and mental and physical well-being. And this is something which I think we should all take as a carry-home message. So now is the time to focus on prevention and promotion of aging with dignity as part of a strategy. And this comprehension is important to determine the well-being in later life by underlining the need for prevention against age discriminatory practices and adopting measures for promoting active aging by including training and working opportunities for older people and care providers, along with combating ageism, which is the root cause for elder abuse, and enhancing their participation and being considered as a resource. Thus, underlying the life course approach towards active aging is the notion to allow people to stay in charge of their own lives for as long as they age, and where possible to contribute to the economy and society. And therefore, the legislations which we need to raise awareness on is necessary as a tool for empowering older people so that they are aware of what is there for them to take advantage of. So to conclude, the suggestion is for being continuously active through the life course with meaningful pursuits, contributing towards well-being, adopting preventive strategies and interventions to enhance social and economic participation at all ages with an inclusive approach, leaving no one behind and excluding anyone with considerations of frailty, dependency, age, and gender. And I would here like to say that it's not just for governments to do, it is also for older people to realize their potential and for NGOs to encourage the older people to be able to experience their potential. This then is a perspective that contributes towards overall inclusive development from a right-based approach at all ages with an empowering strategy which governments should adopt, but proper resource budgeting to make aging with dignity possible and empowering aging populations meaningful. So I would stop here and thank you for your patient listening. And I'm in gratitude for the opportunity to share my thoughts. So once, thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really an eye-opener. And structural aging, and you rightly said, with the wealth of experience the elderly carry, I think they're the most precious resource, and they should be able to realize that. So at some level, probably you brought that point up. Thank you so much. And I'll just request you to probably stay back for a few more minutes, and so we can take questions at the end.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So far we heard Dr. Abha with a lot of body of work, Dr. Barun with some passion there. Dr. Mala with a lot of experience. Now I have somebody who is relatively young and is actually trying to work through this field. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Behera. Dr. Behera is an assistant professor in community health and family medicine at AIIMS Bhubaneswar. He's a passionate advocate for public health. His in-depth understanding of the complexities and intricacies associated with aging has driven him to conduct extensive research on critical aspects of geriatric care. His studies have covered a wide range of topics, including the prevalence of depression amongst the elderly, the provision of comprehensive mental health services in rural area, and the impact of various interventions on the overall well-being of older adults. Dr. Behera's practical experience as a physician greatly enriches his work, enabling him to effectively address the specific medical, psychological, and social needs of older individuals. By bridging the gap between research and practice, he's uniquely positioned to contribute to the development and implementation of strategies aimed at promoting the health and well-being of older adults. Dr. Behera's dedication to advancing geriatric care ensures that he plays a significant role in driving positive change in the field. He's probably the youngest one amongst the keynote speakers, and we know that he is at Puri right now. So Jagannath Puri Yatra is there. So in spite of being such a hectic city right now, he's been kind enough to take out time for us. So Dr. Behera, please, over to you.
Yeah, am I audible? My screen is visible or am I audible?
Screen is visible, sir, and you're perfectly audible. Thank you so much, sir, for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, my prayers to Lord Jagannath, the elderly you plan that well. Okay, I'm really grateful to Pankaj and team and IIHR whole team for the opportunity. This is one day probably I can speak of as an experience in terms of three. First, I'm a physician. I did my MD from AIIMS New Delhi. And I also did some community-based research. As a community-based researcher, and probably from the childhood, I'm associated with social service schemes. I'm currently heading the program coordinator for the university for the National Service Scheme. So I brought about three aspects, not only the physician's aspect. Let's try to put one way of what we look for. Let's ask a question to ourselves. What do we accept as an elderly healthcare today in India? Is it a social norm? Old age home is a social norm for elderly? We have to ask ourselves. No, if you go to the developed country, the norm may be different. If you come to the India, the norm may be different. So that we have to keep in mind. Let's go to the presentation and see what I think. This will be my outline of presentation. The burden of elderly persons, which I've already discussed. I'll go through briefly. Then we'll talk about a couple of studies. I am involved in the abuse among elderly persons. Then what the concept for healthy aging. Then aging with dignity. Here, the clinical solutions, some innovations we'll discuss. Yeah, as you see, as advances, the 65 plus, that is abroad in India is 60 plus, the elderly population significantly increases. Okay, that is the, why 65 plus? Because I've given the comparison globally. You see in 1900, it was taking almost 50 to 100 years to double the elderly population. But in 2000, it has taken less than approximately 25 years, like China doubled in 26 years. And India will do the same, almost the same thing, and we'll quickly double or triple our elderly populations. And most thing, Mom has already mentioned, India is the second population in terms of elderly persons.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, sir, but the slides are not moving. I think
slides are not moving. Okay. I am moving, but let's. I still am with slide.
The slide is visible, sir, but it's not moving. Maybe you can unshare and share it again. Probably that will help.
Yeah. Stop share. I'll share it again. Okay, sorry. Is now slide visible, sir?
Just give it a second, sir. Just give it a second. I think.
Otherwise, I have shared this slide to Dikshant. He can share actually. I've already sent this slide.
Sure, sir. I'll share my screen. I hope this is visible.
Is it just me or it's not visible?
No, I think Dr. Behra would have to unshare his screen, then only Dikshant will be able to put it in.
Stop sharing. I'm stopping sharing. Or
Yeah.
I will try again myself. Yeah, I've stopped
No
sharing.
worries, sir. I can share.
Now it's visible. It's perfectly visible. I think it is from Dikshant's screen. You can just say next and probably we can put up the next slide.
Okay. I'm still not seeing the black from the chance skin. Probably internet is slow. Let's see. Okay. What I'm trying to say, India contains a large number of absolute number of population. It is audible now, sir. It's audible.
Yes, sir. It's audible. It's perfectly audible.
Okay. Sorry for the interpretation. Let's go. Yeah, you come to the elderly abuse. No, by definition, it may be a single or multiple approved actions which occurs any type of relationship. It causes harm or distress to an older persons. And WHO says that 1 in 6 older person faces abuse. And if you review the global literature, it says that it varies 2.2% to 90.4%. No, in our study at Odisha, we found it is around 15.5%. And the emotional abuse are much more common, like 11%. And the most common associated with elderly abuse was substance use. Alcohol, drugs, others, the substance use was associated with elderly abuse. And those who have already did the abuse previously, they are more likely to do the abuse later on. That is the findings. And they also gives you one interesting finding, that is the person who are witnessing abuse, only 40% of them react. And the response why others didn't react was many of them are young, so they did not know how to respond, and others does not have an interest for the same. So that was the study for the abuse. If you look at the type of abuse, there are basically 6 types of abuse. Though physical abuse is more harsh, more harmful, the prevalence is or burden is quite less, that is around 3%. And the physiological or emotional abuse, the most common abuse. And the financial abuse followed by that. Financial is another way. And sexual abuse and neglect, the other type of abuse, which remains one type of abuse. If you look at the WHO actions, they say that 1 in 6 people aged 60 years suffer from abuse, and 2 in 3 staffs. Out of 3 staffs, you have 2 staffs are involved in, during care providing, they are involved in abuse. That is very important. More than that, during last COVID-19, the abuse has gone up, and the abuse can lead to severe physical, mental health, and financial, social consequences. And this is the overall. And they give 5 priorities to tackle abuse of older people: combat ageism, generate more and better data, develop and scale up cost-effective solutions, make an investment case and response. These are the probably global concept of abuse. Let's understand the healthy aging, which talks about it is not only the physical health, it's to have enjoy supportive, adapted social environments. If you look at the overall, the model of disease, we have medical model of disease where we say that you have an agent, host, and environment. For an example, you are getting a malaria or TB, you have Mycobacterium tuberculosis agent, and the elder person is host, and the environment is overcrowding and others. Okay, but if you look at the another model of disease, which you call social model of disease, they consider it's not agent, host, and environment. The social factors influences the diseases like mental health, physical health, why you get the disease, why you didn't get the disease, that they affect. Okay, that is the thing. Can you go to the next? This one. Then you also access to high quality, tailor-made, well-coordinated health and social services. That's the interlinkage, and they are supported maintaining maximum health and functional capacity throughout their lives and are empowered to live and die dignity. This is probably the objectives which is globally accepted. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, is it audible? Because sometimes, yeah. So
Perfect, sir.
healthy aging as the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that enables well-being in the older age. Go to the next. At a hard about interesting extension capacity. These three things are very important. You have to look to your environment, whether it is friendly for elderly. That is very important. You have to build a long-term care for support capacity enhancing behaviors. Then health services. Now you have to look into the, there is a limitations as elderly, the mobility limitations. They cannot move on as a young. They are dependent on their sons, daughters to take them to hospitals. That is a number. Even if they have mobility from public transport, then the financial things are also come up. Elderly most need healthcare at a doorstep. That is the most feasible for them. Most important thing is try to prevent the diseases. That is the most crucial effect. If you're not able to prevent them, then try to control them so that they do not land up with the complications. Even if they have an advanced condition, then you have to provide supportive and palliative care. That is probably the public health framework for healthy aging we talk about. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, probably this is a slide we say that you don't become a don't become a floor moppers, become a tap turners. If you try to treat as a clinical care of elderly, it is impossible. In Indian context, healthcare delivery system will miserably fail. So you need to prevent them. You have to identify the risk factor. You have to take action early in the middle age and the young age so that elderly had a free the better life, enjoy they enjoy quality of life better when you age. That is much more important. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Among all the actions, probably the first actions will need create a age-friendly cities and community. This has 8 domains. No. For example, transportation, that should be age-friendly. Okay. For an example, outdoor buildings where the elderly move, there is a chance of falling. You know that falls are common in elderly. When they fall, they easily have a fractures, which takes a long time to heal and affect quality of life miserably. So here, that outdoor spaces and buildings, then community support system, health services that has to be available nearby. Madam Avama was telling about, the village. The training has to be at local level. Training has to be below the community health centers. Otherwise, it is difficult to transport and reach the health services. Then communication information, the audio visual about telephonic, that communication has to be elderly friendly. Then civil participation, they need to participate. The job, that's okay. But they need to be engaged some activity which excites them, which they can contribute. That definitely they have a wealth of knowledge, as you discussed and Pankaj emphasized. But it is very important they need to be participated. Then they need respect and social inclusion. You cannot exclude them from social functions. If you are doing a family functions and they are not invited, this put in a lot of immense strain to them, immense pressure. You need to take care of the small things. Then social participation, they all get together and other, they need to be a participation. The age-friendly city or community is very important. Then go to the next slide. Yeah, then we talk about age-friendly environment. Cities means it's not only the cities or communities. No, they need to contribute. It's not only participate when they take in planning action, take in, to contribute in the society, contribute in the family, involve in the family functions and activities. Then they take it, much more better in terms of mental and physical activity. The basic thing is you need to fulfill the basic needs of them. Then they need to learn, grow, and make decisions. Decision making is very important. One of my study while I did my AIMS Delhi, the prevalence of depression was around 20% from screening tool, and from diagnosing tool it was around 10%. That 10% needs in terms of pharmacological care. But one of the very important peculiar finding of depression was if the elderly are not involved in decision making, they are more likely to be depressed 2 to 3 times. So they just, if you don't involve them in family, they think that they are excluded and they are not, so that is a very important, you need to, there will be differences of opinion, but you need to involve them in decision making. You may or may not always accept their thoughts, but you need to involve them. Then there have to be mobility, then build and mentor relationship. And at last, they need to contribute something where they can. They may not contribute in every aspect, but it's very important they contribute in some aspect where they can. Can you go to the next slide? This is probably one of the thing that I wanted to express very, very with and very emphasis. No, now all of you know. Can you somebody say who is better civilized, this McDonald one or this the lower slide one? Who is better civilized? Anyone can answer? Would like to answer? If you today ask who is better civilized, anybody from the volunteer would like to answer? This shopkeeper, the near one, or the upper McDonald one? That is conventional method. People will say the MACD one. Okay, the reason you need to understand the change dynamics of socio-demography right now. We think elderly will make better by this diet. That is much more important, because the entities, we know that they put on immense, not only financial constraint, not only health seeking, entities are lifelong diseases, and they put a lot of stress under and put on a lot of risk to infectious diseases. And the diet is very, very important. You need to take care of that. Okay, I'll come to the next slide. But I need to understand, go back that slide. That is a two thing. The market-based model cannot fulfill the nutrition requirement of elderly. Let me explain. The prices cannot be controlled by us, neither by government, and market-based model cannot fulfill the food requirement of elderly, neither us or elderly. You have to produce a local production and utilization model which can improve the nutrition of others. There is no alternative. That is number one. And you have to maintain the food diversity of elderly. That is very, very important. You can go to the next slide now. Yeah. There are peculiar requirements which among elderly, you need to understand that. First, with aging, your resting metabolic rate goes down. Your physical activities goes down. So you need to restrict your calories. Every year after 60, your calorie requirement decreases around. But your muscle mass also lowers down if your protein intake does not increase. Your protein requirement has to be increased slightly. We tell it 1.2, 1.5 gram kg per day. For older people who are malnourished and chronic illness, and 1 to 1.8. There is a slight increase in protein. You reduce the salt. Okay, that is important. That is associated with the hypertension. Sugar and oil intake, that is a key parameter. Diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. These are three key biological parameters which are associated with the stroke, cardiovascular disease mortality, along with other two, physical inactivity and inappropriate unhealthy diet. Along the 5 risk topmost, and 6 is the substance use. They top the common cause of cardiovascular mortality. And the importance of dietary fiber. Let me give you an example of what happens. In my clinics, the people came, one say that I had a constipation, and there's a severe constipation, and you start with lactose. Then after that, you feel the elderly patient come and I cannot have food for 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, or you put a fiber reserve goal. They say that, no, I'm not going to offer for a long time. I need to supplement. Then you counsel them, take more water, increase your fiber intake through seasonal fruits or vegetables. You may not buy the other fruits or vegetables, but at least to get seasonal fruits or vegetables. Mango mil raha hai to mango ke season mein kha lijiye. But the patient come again and say that, sir, I also cannot offer seasonal fruits and available. I'm really poor. What can I do? I have to scratch my head. And I started to him, let's go to our older practice. Start tulsi ke patte roz subhe 10 ke 15 khana shuru kar. So we know that we need fiber to relieve constipation, and leaves and vegetables both had fibers. Then I start taking, and it was more exciting for me. Tulsi ke patti culturally acceptable. I will take. They will feel fancy about it. They will start taking it. After taking 15-20 days, then the constipation goes down, because today's diet is really less fiber. We have much more pulses and others. Fruits and vegetables are costly and difficult to for others. Then certain vitamins and minerals you need to take care, because for an example, thiamine is important for cognition and depression. They have a peculiar requirement. Vitamin D, across all age group it is required, but vitamin D is very important for elderly, like muscle pains, bone osteoarthritis, they are also required. Calcium, Then zinc, we ignore sometimes because there's a require for immunity, therefore immunity and iron, elderly anemia and elderly, they're the different topic I'm not going to. You can go to the next slide. This is something, it's not, the first important point is nutrition and elderly. Then another important is the mental health of elderly persons. If you look at the mental health of elderly persons, depression is the most common and 20%. Okay, I told you about around 20%. And if you take the intervention in terms of pharmacology, it is around 10%. And much more important, we conducted a study right now, finished 6 months back. It say that treatment gap for elderly is around 90-80%. You have, for an example, you had a depression, 100 people had a depression, around 2 to 3 people are getting treated, 97 to 98 people are not treated. This is very, very important. And the factors like we had stress, we have abuse, past history, comorbidities, there's a lot of factors which are associated. I'm not going into it. If you look at the USA data, they say that the highest suicidal rate among in their age group is after 85 or 80 plus. They have a highest suicidal rate. But in Indian context, that is not true till now. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, probably here, let's understand what type of disease you may have an adult. You may have a fever, you have an infectious disease, you may have an uncommunicable disease, you may have a genetic diseases, you may have a nutritional deficiency. But the most important for geriatric age care is degenerative diseases. जैसे उम्र होता है स्किन थोड़ा रिंकलिंग आने लगता है, सुनाई कम देना दिखता है, दिखना कम होता है, बाल ग्रे होने लगती है, बेनाइन प्रोस्टेट होने लगती है, vaginal atrophy होने होती है. So all these degenerative diseases, घुटने दर्द करना लगता है, so they become part of life. It is not easy to get accepted them as a part of life. For an example, the person who was enjoying life for 50 years with and they started getting all these, then it is not easy to accept. While as a physician, you need to focus on that. No, you are treating for diabetes, or treating for hypertension, or treating for TB or malaria, you also look for degenerative diseases. They may have started, they may not have alarming yet, but disease has been already started. And the important thing, you need to screen for NCD, degenerative diseases and mental health, which are ignored, particularly degenerative disease and mental health. Then the elderly has a typical way of presentation of disease. Sometimes, like pneumonia patient can present in an altered consciousness. Like we say that infant or neonate, somebody has a sepsis. The baby may not present as a hyperthermia or fever, they present a hypothermia. Similarly, the presentations may not be typical in elderly or geriatric patient. They may present differently than the adult presentation. For clinical perspective, physicians will know that the presentation may be atypical in this age group. And much more important, being elderly, they will put on a multiple drug. अपने मल्टीविटामिन भी चल रहा होगा, डायबिटीज की दवाई चल रही होगी, हाइपरटेंशन की चलाई होगी, इन्फेक्शन हो गया, एंटीबायोटिक भी चल रहा होगा. As a physician, it is very important to look for drug interactions. Sometimes because they will get 10 drugs, 5 drugs, 7 drugs. Sometimes we miss the drug interaction as a physician. That is another point probably all look into while providing care. Drug interactions, there are typical way of presentation, screening for mental health and degenerative disease along with NCD when they approach us at any point in terms of opportunistic care. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, can I go for 2-3 minutes? I had a time, Pankaj, 2 minutes. This is the last slide.
Sure, sir.
If you ask me, what is the solution? What is the solution for the current churn? It's very, very difficult to answer. But the question is the best way of providing universal nutrition. I put a nutrition also because not only health, because without appropriate nutrition, you cannot have a healthcare of elderly. So it is best way of providing universal nutrition and healthcare to elderly person is to generate. Can you go to the next? Yeah, go next also, to generate universal capacity to care for nutrition and health, empowered individual and community. Every individual has to be sensitized from the beginning, from the school syllabus. Even if they are children, you need to sensitize for what the need of elderly, how they should be empathized while transportation, while the crossing the roads and other. And every individual and family has to be sensitized. They should understand the specific care for the elderly. Otherwise, old age home, patchy involvement. Some NGOs, some old age homes, some programs will do patchy betterment. But for the providing universal way of nutritional health care is to generate universal care to them. Otherwise, it is not possible. Thank you for the opportunity. Any question and comments I would like to take.
So, sir, I'll request you to stay back because we'll take the questions at the end, probably 5-10 minutes more, right? And but thank you for that lovely presentation. Thank you for that lovely presentation. I think this highlights a lot when it comes to the medical care for the elderly. I think it was an important aspect. And the most liked part, which I feel, was the tulsi leaves. You actually find innovative methods of just providing that nutrition. So thank you so much. I'll just request to stay back, for you to stay back. Now, I'll, last but not the least, now I'll request our director, ma'am, Dr. Sutpa. So Dr. Sutpa B. Niyogi is Director and Public Health Specialist, actively engaged in research and training at International Institute of Health Management Research. She is MBBS from NRS Medical College, Kolkata, MD in Community Medicine from PGI Chandigarh, and DNB in Maternal and Child Health. She has a rich experience in public health and is particularly interested in implementations of projects that is relevant to national policies and program. She has a rich experience in public health and is particularly interested in implementation of epidemiological and clinical research-based projects centered around MCH, and those with great relevance to national policies and program. She has been very dynamic, and she's a very dynamic leader. And I would like to invite her here to actually throw some light on Center for Aging Studies, which is there at IIHMR Delhi, and its global collaboration with UK Aging Network South Asia. Ma'am, please, if you may.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Pankaj, and a very good afternoon to all the eminent speakers and participants who have joined for this important webinar today. I was really very excited and happy to hear about the initiatives that are being taken to address the problem of aging. At the same time, I'm actually feeling sad to listen to so many problems that our aging population actually is facing, or they are bound to face in the future. So about the Center for Aging Studies, I feel that IIHMR Delhi would provide the right platform to have a Center for Aging Studies, primarily because of the multidisciplinary faculty pool and the research officers pool that we have at the center. So we have faculty members from different domains like anthropology, psychology, medicine, public health, information technology, hospital sector, etc. And why this is important is that aging population actually are fraught by a multitude of problems, and we need a great deal of diversity among the faculty pool in order to address all these problems. A number of recommendations have come through while the speakers were talking, and we have made a note of all the recommendations, and we assure you that we will try to address them to the extent possible. We received kind of a request from Cognitive Reality Interdisciplinary Network, Lancaster University, UK, expressing their interest in establishing a new network focused on South Asia as an extension of the UK Aging Network. So we also responded positively to that, and recently on June 13th, we received confirmation that IIHMR Delhi will now be one of the global partners of UK Aging Network South Asia. So what it means is that we would be able to provide opportunity to all our partners and collaborators to conduct research projects along with us, to participate in writing papers, manuscript, policy briefs, and also to conduct workshops and training workshops, as well as to facilitate student exchange, which will be funded by this network. So I'll not take much time, but I thought I'll just introduce you to one of the documentary where we are now going to show you, which is titled, "I Am Choosing to Age Successfully." And basically this serves as a reminder that age should never be a barrier to leading a fulfilling and vibrant life. And behind this documentary is a very vibrant and dynamic research officer at IIHMR Delhi, who is none other than Ms. Ayani Das. An anthropologist by training, she is an early career researcher, a very passionate gerontologist, and she focuses on understanding and improving the health and well-being of older adults. She has a dream and passion of bringing aging to the center stage of all public health dialogues and debates. And she also wishes to see that this actually gets a kind of a global recognition in future. So, Shaini, on behalf of all the participants who have or who are attending this webinar today, we assure you that we will be extending all our support to see that you come out really with flying colors in this particular field. So over to you, Dr. Pankaj. I think we are going to show the documentary now. And let me just remind you that we need many more signees from this team, especially the young people who can actually, dedicate themselves to this particular cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Just give me a minute.
So we are not able to hear the audio.
Of which a large number comprises women. These older women are more vulnerable to poverty due to unpaid responsibilities and low savings. Rural areas neither possess and the tender age of 40 and widowed at 35.
I think let me try it again. So maybe I'll try and sharing it in a different fashion. Maybe the audio will be better then. Just give me a minute.
Sir, shall I try playing? If that's okay.
You can if you want to. Audio, Anashi. Audio
Sure,
should
sir.
be.
Yeah.
Rural India contains the largest elderly population of the country, of which a large number comprises women. These older women are more vulnerable to poverty due to unpaid responsibilities and low savings. Rural areas neither possess the facilities nor the financial support as compared to urban sprawls. And all this impacts their health-seeking behaviors. In a village of West Bengal, an 86-year-old lady enthusiastically speaks of her love for life, and she is eager to prove that she can age well. Alema Biswas was married at the tender age of 14 and widowed at 35. She reared 7 children on her own, doing all she could do for them. Presently, all her children and grandchildren are settled, but they seldom find time to speak to her. When we asked her, "Do you feel isolated, lonely? Do you think you need support from them?"
না না আমি একাই সব পারি যেটা নেই করে দিতে পারবো বরং সকলে যখন আমাকে সাহায্য করতে আসে তখন মনে হয় আমি নির্ভরশীল হয়ে যাচ্ছি। মাঝে মাঝে তাদের কথা খুব মনে পড়ে, কিন্তু আমি জানি ওরা খুবই ব্যস্ত।
She happily participates in household chores with her daughters-in-law and often travels with friends in addition to annual trips to various destinations in India. Despite never having a school education, her philosophy and struggle is truly inspirational. Anima routinely visits her primary healthcare center without fail. She believes in early prevention rather than cure and also maintains a healthy diet. She solves the puzzles of the local newspaper to keep mentally fit rather than falling prey to the prejudices of society. Her decision to age successfully also led her to a financially independent life. Anima is a living example of how positive choices determine our wellness. Active engagement with life can make an active life. We just need more awareness to do so. While healthcare experts in our country consider rural health a daunting challenge, all it took us was the wisdom and awareness of an old lady to motivate us towards fulfilling our goal of Swasthya Bharat.
So I think that was a very inspirational video, and we have overshot the time. So, and I being the moderator, I'm the guilty party here, I think. But I think we'll quickly take a few questions and we'll just probably take 3-4 questions and probably then go with vote of thanks, right? So the first question which I have, and it is really open to the panel here. The educational attainment are proved to have association with loneliness, particularly among older adults. India is progressing towards aging population. How Indian government should deal with their population on education and social exclusion? So this is on education and social exclusion, and particularly aimed at loneliness. So I can invite Dr. Mala Kapoor, ma'am, if you might like to respond to that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate this question. In fact, it's a very relevant question. And, we've been having some dialogue with the government. Why does the adult literacy program not include seniors? It stops at a certain age. And education is the means, or rather a tool, for a lot of empowerment, which takes older people, or rather anybody, to face life very positively. And education, we are not only talking about school level education, it requires financial literacy, it requires digital literacy. And all these means can support older people for a more active and fruitful life. They can manage things on their own. So we have, in fact, I also through my grassroots activities, we are promoting this, and there is a very keenness to join some of these programs. And it also becomes a tool for removing loneliness, because they get connected through WhatsApp with their children, through, the various other means. They can manage a lot of things. But here I would just say one caution. We have been talking to a few senior citizens, encouraging them. But some of them then said, ma'am, but if we do digital banking and if we do this, how do we, but we enjoy going to the bank, interacting with people. Here, we don't get that opportunity. But what becomes important is that they can go to the bank, but at least then they're confident of dealing and not getting into frauds and not losing out on money. So, education empowers them to a lot of mental well-being, and that is important. And I think the government is also trying to, as part of their digital program, bringing in a lot of mechanisms to include older people. And during COVID time, it really was enhanced, especially in terms of digital health and digital banking, digital shopping. And the other thing which we are trying to now use this means is travel is becoming expensive. So we are using this means of linking through Zooms, through videos, through this. So the loneliness element also gets taken care of. And it kind of serves a dual purpose. And very importantly, we are bringing ladies into it. Many women do not have very smart phones, but we are teaching them how to use their whatever phones they have to bring about an interactive communication with various members of their family, of their society, and friends. And a very important aspect is loneliness can also be overcome by means when older people have facility to listen and hear something. There's somebody talking to them. So they get connected through songs, they get connected through videos, through films, and all this is an educational tool for them, and which is a very step forward for curbing loneliness. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for that response. So now, can I request Dr. Abha Chaudhary, because I think this is about legal framework. Is there any legal framework wherein people with dementia, cognitive impairment can have access to mental capacity advocates? Probably, and this question is from Dr. Suhail Sheikh. He's actually following it up that like we have here in UK. So probably in UK, they have certain legal frameworks like that. Dr. Abha, if you could throw some light on this. Is Dr. Abha around?
Yes, she is muted.
Yes. I'm sorry. I won't be able to really comment specifically on the mental health part. I think we'll need to get some legal expert to speak on the mental health part. But the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act and other laws concerning senior citizens give overall framework for a quality of life and access to all the healthcare services. It also directs the medical institutions and state governments to have a specific geriatric care clinic, reserve beds for senior citizens, and so on and so forth. But as far as a specific legal framework for dementia or Alzheimer's is concerned, I am sorry. I think you need to have some other opinion for that. I don't think it exists at present.
Okay. And you've already answered this in chat box, probably just a little bit elaboration on that. Are rural olders adequately informed and aware of the various welfare schemes available to them? So light on that, please.
No, I mentioned that majority of them are less literate and they are more engaged in the vagaries of life for, they're occupied in their daily chores. So a robust information dissemination system and awareness system, which is more graphic, which is more people friendly, which is more in local languages, that is required. And again and again, I emphasize on the empowerment of local self-government institutions like panchayats to disseminate the policies, programs, and laws concerning elderly, which are made here sitting in New Delhi. So the information dissemination system has to be more decentralized and more local.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those wonderful remarks. Dr. Barun, can I trouble you with this next question? I think with your body of research, the question is, what strategies can be implemented to support the elderly population in the context of changing family structures and decreasing value, considering the presence of large unemployed youth in the country. So on one hand, you have elderly population, other end, there is unemployed youth. Dr. Varun, your comments on that?
Yeah, the thing is that, if you can consider one situation in an urban setting, say, for example, in Calcutta city, and the elderly person is an educated and well-placed individual, then of course he is much better placed compared to somebody who is living in the rural areas where there are problems of the digital divide, and there are other socioeconomic issues where people are not being able to help them from a distance. As a matter of fact, if we think that somebody from New York can help their parents with initially with Skype and now with Zoom, which may be lacking in case of a person who is in a remote rural area, where from also somebody from the household has gone to some other states for laboring, So basically, the problems are different, and therefore the initiation of the local self-government and also banks and some other institutions must be very essential in order to address this kind of an issue. And it depends on the local specific solutions. You cannot see one problem is solved by one's solution mechanism. So it depends on the situation wherefrom you have to take the decision based on the availability of the usual mechanisms.
Okay.
That's
Right.
my take on this particular issue.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. So the next one I have for Dr. Behera, this is regarding depression. Dr. Behera, so I'll read the question out. So the question, and it's basically from Dr. Tim Hoffman, and he writes, it's a comment and a question. So depression amongst the aged and other stages of human life and even animals is often based in decline or loss of communication experience. So this is regarding depressions. Quality of life is enhanced by sharing both to and from others. How to encourage all to listen to elders, to learn as well, and ensure them and ourselves of transmission onwards of their values, traditions, and knowledge. So basically, how communication can help in depression, and what is your take on depression in elderly? Dr. Behera, please.
Yeah, I really, one good study I remember is Professor Pratap Saran. What they did in AIMS New Delhi, he suggested just enhance elderly to how to use a smartphone or small phone to talk. That increases their communications with their long-staying individuals, sons or daughters. That has an enhancement. That the study finding I remember that sir suggested. That is one thing. Definitely, the communication is the key in elderly. Now, migration being one of the important thing from rural areas. The children are coming outside, and the communication barrier is already there. The elderly are always worried about their son and daughters. That is one aspect. But most important aspect you have to remember. What is happening if the son is not taking care of his father right now or his mother? This is actually he or she is inviting the same thing in the future. The sons or daughters are learning the same. So we need to understand our own system. Actually, it is not a country where like USA or Europe, where old age home is already, is a social norm, and we have a different culture. Here, there's a socio-demographic transition where we have not settled with neither old age home or we have staying in a joint family or extended family. Joint family is broken down to nuclear family, and we don't have a old age structured home also. So there is a problem, and it will take some time to settle down. Either India will retain in culture of joint family, or at least joint family in terms of social interaction. It may not be living together always, But joint family in terms of interaction, cultural values, in terms of celebrating the festivals, they may be joint culture. That is much more important than staying together in a joint family. Either India will retain that, or will move to the the developed country like old age home and living in nuclear family. That is up to us, and the next 3 generations will tell it. And communication is one of the important factors for the depression. Definitely, not only communication, decision making, family decision making, and communication is the key. Thank you.
Pankaj, can I just put in a point here?
Please, ma'am, please do.
Yeah, in fact, I think since you have also been part of the LASI study, some of the new research is showing and throwing a lot of light on intergenerational relationships, which have changed over the years, but have now come out with a new complexion and with a new identity. And caring provided by grandparents is becoming very relevant in today's society. And I think there we are seeing changes which are coming, even, distant relationships are coming closer now because of the caring capacity which the older parents are providing to the younger generation. And for that, then we are finding a different kind of reciprocity which is coming in from the younger generation towards older parents, that they are monetarily taking care of many of the needs of older people. So, there is we need to study in more depth the changing relationships. Some of my work is touching on these things, how migration is impacting, how the urban living is impacting, how working women's lives are being impacted and therefore having consequences on intergenerational. And I encourage young researchers to talk of some of these dimensions, because in our country, we need more research to highlight some of these issues in both rural and urban areas. So it's, there are a lot of changes, some which are very conducive to old age, and some, of course, which do not allow for too much of stability in that, but there are mechanisms to stabilize that, which the government is looking at. So we have respite care homes now being created, recreational facilities being created for older people. And also there was a concern about mental health and disability issues. Yes, the mental health policy of India is paying attention to old age related disabilities, cognitive as well as physical. And there are safeguards being put in place. And the long-term care policy, which is now coming in, is looking after care facilities, which can look after people who require long-term care. So there's a lot of developments on this area, in this area. Thank you.
Just mom, thank you a lot for adding that. I completely agree with that, and I was about to talk it and I forgot. The old generation has again the importance has gone because of the care of the grandson or granddaughter. That is one thing. But another finding now, it is not related exactly, but I just want to add on one point. There is also there is some, like, now the parents are also leaving children very early to boarding school. That is another topic. That is another, like, similar to the old age are sent to old age home. The parents are sending their small kids to the residential boarding schools. The phenomena does not differ. I think these both phenomena has to breathe somewhere, and they lie out to standard deviations.
Totally, that's what I agree with. The changing transitions and social change which is happening, we need many more studies to reflect and take in depth the significance and meaning of relationships as it is changing in the context of development. So, that's what I encourage, and institutes like this one should probably throw more light how it's affecting care aspects, how it is affecting social and health dimensions, and having impact on mental health and so forth. I mean, they are very I mean, there is also a generation of senior citizens who are so happy being on their own because they're saying for the first time we are having space of our own. They're saying we are loving time to do our own activities. Otherwise, we were so housebound. So, I mean, I did some research in some of these new residential complexes, and there was a percentage we tried to identify of people of younger generation staying in these complexes and people of older generation staying in these complexes, and what were the kind of activities they were doing. And some of the older parents who are on their own in these, these are called gated communities, they have all the facilities taken care of. And many of them are now going out in groups for lunches, they're going out in groups for movies, they are participating in their own internal activities. And they said, we were so earlier being bound. So they say we enjoy our children coming for a shorter duration, staying with us, but we like our own space. And I mean, I would encourage Siani to, interview some of these people to understand how, because, now with life expectancy increasing, people have almost about 30 or 25 years of living a different life. After age 60, with life expectancy increasing 85, 90, I mean, and also we must, people are aging well in many ways in certain parts of the country. So, there is a full, the heterogeneity, like I mentioned, of the population needs to be understood with greater depth and more research.
True. So all great things must come to an end. It was a wonderful discussion. And, I have got around 50 questions in my chat box. If we actually try to answer all those, probably it will be evening. But, and Dikshant has really generously said that in case anyone has any queries, we'll address them. We have an email, we have a number. So probably the discussion goes on and, but we'll have to end this webinar as of now. And I would really like to thank all of you to be here, that is, and to actually just spark this great discussion. This encourages us, and we really feel that there was this need for Center for Aging Studies, which is now there at IIHMR Delhi. So I'll like to start thanking our director, Dr. Sutpa B. Niyogi. She really actually conceptualized this, and it was put in a matter of days, right? And so it was just last Thursday we actually conceptualized, and today we are having this great discussion. So thank you so much, ma'am, for always being an inspiration. Now to our four speakers, who generously have come out and helped us with putting up this webinar together. Dr. Mala Kapoor Shankar Das, ma'am, thank you so much. You have such a body of knowledge, and it was really nice interacting with you. And thank you so much for your expertise. I'd like to...
You're being kind, Pankaj. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank Dr. Abha Chaudhary. She had to leave in between, but the laws in place and what is happening in Delhi around those laws and around those histories, she really put a light on that. A passionate anthropologist, Dr. Varun, thank you so much. And I think your passion speaks, sir. So your passion was really evident when you were speaking. So thank you so much, sir, for being here at such a short span of time. Dr. Behra, thank you so much. And we understand that
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you.
It is Jagannath Puri Yatra. You have been busy, but thank you so much for sparing your time, sir. Thank you so much. And last and not the least, definitely, our own Dr. Shyani Das. She has been really instrumental in this area. And then Dr. Dikshant, who is always behind these technical stuff. It would have not been possible without this technical stuff going forward. And thank you all of you for being here. We'll keep this discussion alive. You will have the emails and the phone numbers. So we'll probably put all these thoughts together and move forward with great vigor. Thank you for all the inspiration. Thank you all.
A photograph, please.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Photograph Dikshant lega ma'am. Usko aata hai. Mere ko nahi aata hai.
Sure. I'll request everyone to please switch on their videos for a couple of seconds so that we can click photographs. Okay, everyone can smile a bit now. I'm just clicking it.
Everybody is hungry now. It's almost lunchtime.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I've clicked some screenshots and pictures. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Pankaj sir, for moderating the entire session, and thank you to our eminent speakers. With this, we'll close the webinar. If anyone has any queries, I've dropped in my email ID as well as the contact number. So if any queries is still unaddressed, you can reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure and interacting with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.